like that. Okay, hopefully you can see my slides now. So your profile photo is really quite important. The first one I'm going to show you here is a random photo of a Danish journalist. Her name is Tanya, and I don't actually know her. I just made a screenshot of her one day when I was looking at profile pictures of journalists. And I kind of liked this profile picture, and I wanted to ask you in class, and Elizabeth, maybe you can switch on the sound here. How would you, if I ask her, if I ask you, does she seem like a likable person? What do you say? I just lost you.
Hi. Okay. Then I say something. I think yes, she seems like a likable person, but this picture occurs to me to be quite personal and not very competent.
Exactly. Because what is your reaction for the next question? Does she appear competent?
Not really.
What do you others think?
No.
No, not really. What about influential? Not as well.
One sentence.
Maybe you can switch off the sound because I guess the echo is quite bad. I asked some students in Aarhus last week, and one of them, well, they said the same thing as you. Not competent, not influential. Actually, the crowd was a bit divided in the question of competency. Some people said it's hard to say, actually, and other people said no, not really. And one guy who was very much into photography said that, well, it appears that she is a video journalist, and he thought that having this photo with a, what is it? Is it a garden table behind her head, sort of piercing her neck? He thought that was sort of the opposite of competency, being a video journalist and not being able to have a clearer background here. So the reason I'm using this example is just that I want you to, well, just be aware of your profile photo also as a professional tool. So I wanted to also share with you quite a funny service. Hang on a sec, I'll switch the slide here. Quite a funny service called photofeeler.com. You can try it out if you want to. It's quite useful, but then again, don't overdo it. But what you can do with Photofeeler, you can upload a photo and you can ask the community around Photofeeler to rate your photo around competency, likability, and whether or not you seem like an influential person. You can just for free upload a picture or more pictures that you consider using as your profile photos. And you will then more or less instantly, or at least very quickly, you will get some feedback from the community around Photofeeler. I think also you can distribute the URL to the survey amongst your own friends and network and ask them for various pictures that you are considering using as your profile pictures. And as you can see here, the guy with the black and white photo scores very high in influential and competency, whereas the other guy opposite him with a full body photo with he's doing something funny with his hands. Strangers who look at that picture actually deem him less competent and less influential. So your profile pictures are important. And another thing, this service Photofeeler, they wrote a, you'll get these slides afterwards. You'll get a URL to my slides, so you can look into it yourself. A couple of months ago, they wrote quite an interesting blog post about the perfect profile photo. And I should say, in my view, there is no such thing as the perfect profile photo, because it's a very individual, personal thing, how you want your profile picture to look. But what they did was they looked at thousands of instances where people had gotten feedback on PhotoFeeler, and they gathered it all in one big infographic, and they tried to sort of put together enough data to draw out specific functions of our profile picture. And as you can maybe see in this slide, people with sunglasses, having evaluated thousands of feedback sessions of profile photos, they can conclude that on average, the likability factor drops below 0 and actually gets a negative feedback when people have sunglasses, are wearing sunglasses on their profile picture. To me, this was no surprise. I used to work many years as a television journalist, and one of the first things we learn in television is that when we interview people and they are wearing sunglasses, we should politely ask them to move the sunglasses, because on TV you come across as slightly arrogant with sunglasses on, and this is the same effect that we see in this infographic here. Another part which I thought was quite funny is that when you, this is with the, where is the laughing one? Oh, it'll be there in a minute. Hang on a sec. Here we go. So look at this one here. If people are laughing in their profile picture, try and have a look at how the likability score goes sort of through the roof. So you come across as extremely likable if you are laughing in your profile picture. But look what happens to the other factors, competence and likability. They are getting down close to 0 if you have a profile picture where you are actually laughing. So in terms of what the data tells us, apparently the most effective profile shot of your face is with a smile and with teeth visible. Myself, I think it's quite funny this, and you shouldn't overdo it, but this is what the statistics tell us, that we come across at a sort of a nice mixture of likable and competency and influential if we are smiling with teeth visible. Actually, it turns out that it's better than just smiling with mouth closed. So another factor that I would just like to point out from the infographic, this is the position of the eyes. It turns out that when you are squinching, do you know what squinching is? I'll see if I can stop sharing my screen here. I don't know if I can do it uncommanded. It's something like this, you know, like So your eyes are not quite open, but they're a bit closed, like that, maybe a wise look or what it is. But squinching turns out, when you look at the data, to be really effectful. What else was there that I wanted to tell you about? Oh yeah, this one here. Look at this one here with formal dress. This is no surprise. All throughout history, formal dress or dressing, sort of the people in power do, has always been a very strong visual signal. And also in the digital space, formal dress gives people a high score on competency and influential. So what can we use? Or this one was just actually to point out the effect that we looked at Tanya before, and some people, when I've shown her picture, have criticized her picture because there was something in the background. It turns out that when you study thousands of profile pictures, the setting, the background, actually doesn't really matter that much. So I've included, if some of you think this is an interesting topic, what do we actually know about the psychological effects on our profile pictures? There's a nice, in the slides here, there's a nice article here with great links to what knowledge we have about the best profile pictures out there. So in my view, what can we use all this for? Well, it's quite important for me to how shall I put this, to stress that it's an individual thing. And I think your professor and I would not like to see you go out and copy this LinkedIn photo style of this guy that I showed you from Photofield, the black and white photo. It's a nice photo, and it's fine if you do, but I think that we would like you to maintain your individuality and your own character. So you should find your own way, but you should be mindful that your profile pictures, when viewed in a professional setting, and take care to notice that when we meet in June and you do this experiment with the mood court, you will be, for instance, tweeting live or Facebooking or Snapchatting or whatever tools you choose to use. People out there will be able to find your voice, and they will check out your profile. And the first thing they would look at is your profile picture. And it gives them, whether you are conscious about this or not, it will give them a very important first impression of you. So you should consider your profile picture, but don't overdo it. You don't have to look as if you are sort of the most powerful and influential journalist in Germany already. You are a student, and it's okay for you to have a student-like profile picture, no problem. So I just return to my slides because I have a couple of other pointers around that. And hang on a sec, I'll share my screen again. Here we go, I think. I think actually one of the things that I think is very important these days is that your profile picture also has a human quality. Tanya here has a very personal and almost private human quality around her, about her profile picture. I actually kind of like that about her profile picture. You can then discuss whether or not she goes too far. But I think there's an important point here in maintaining some sort of accessible and likable human quality about your profile picture. Because when you think about it, these days our lives are dominated by technology in many ways. And it's dominated in technology to an extent that I think we are actually even now finding hard to fully grasp. We are surrounded with technology that is becoming more and more advanced. We will have self-driving cars. I saw that a city in Sweden has ordered already 100 self-driving cars, and we see that many types of regular jobs in the next 10 or 15 years will be replaced by artificial intelligence. And I think that in a world where technology is as dominant as it is, our profile picture has an important mission as well, to sort of ground ourselves in the more humane side of things. And maybe I can also dive into things from a more maybe extreme perspective. Anyone in class know who this guy is? I'm just asking. Anyone? No? Well, you are excused. This is anyone?
Nobody. Huh?
No. This is his name is Lee Sedol. He's from South Korea, and the picture is just a couple of months old. This is how you look when you have just been beaten by Google's DeepMind in the game called Go. I don't know if you are familiar with this Asian, I wouldn't say chess-like game, because it's actually much more complicated than chess. There's a game called Go, and he is the world champion of that game. And 2 months ago, Google's artificial intelligence called DeepMind beat him 4 times in a row. He won the 5th game. This came as a surprise to even the programmers behind Google's DeepMind. They didn't actually know going into this game And they didn't think that it was possible for DeepMind to actually beat the world champion. There's this very special thing about the game Go, that it is said that the amount of possible combinations through a game of Go equals the number of atoms in the known universe. And it is a game that acquires a huge amount of, obviously, intelligence, but also intuition, human intuition. And this was why people thought up until the game a couple of months ago that it was some years still before artificial intelligence were able to compete on that level. But Google's DeepMind actually beat him 4 times in a row. And this is a picture after one of the games that he lost. And what do I imply by mentioning that? Well, I think actually what I mentioned before about technology being a very dominant force in our culture today is something that has only begun. And we are actually at the brink of an era where technology will become even more dominant, and also in the area of journalism. You know, some time back, I don't know whether you are aware of this, but actually for some years now, robots or computers have been writing news stories, especially within the areas of financial news and sports reporting. This is actually not new. This has been going on for years, but it's becoming very advanced now. And we will actually see, even though journalism is not first among the jobs that will become endangered by artificial intelligence, we will actually start seeing parts of journalism being mastered more and more by computers and artificial intelligence. And we are moving past the sort of what I would call stupid computerized journalism, where you just fill up a database with sentences and then you feed sports results into the database, and out comes a mixture of pre-written sentences that will then form a news story. The big wire agencies, AFP, Reuters, the German equivalents, they are already using this. Now we are starting to see journalism where it is written by artificial intelligence, where we have an example of a startup in San Francisco where you can actually feed the algorithm with your personal writing style. And on an experimental basis, the algorithm will then be able to actually write articles that mimics a certain reporter's personal style. So what I want to say about this is that in a world where computers are becoming more dominant, there's a nice quote here from a woman called Angela Ahrendts. She is vice president of retail and online stores at Apple. The more technologically advanced our society becomes, the more we need to go back to the basic fundamentals of human communication. And this, I think, actually is a point that I would like to stress here, just to be a bit philosophical about profile pictures and a bit philosophical about the role of your personal profile in social media. In a world as dominated by technology as this, I think coming across as a human person, as a journalist, is becoming more and more important also. Of course, obviously also the skills of our trade are equally important today, but coming across also as a human being is a quality, or will be a quality in itself. Because in a world where people will have a hard time distinguishing between algorithm-written journalism and human-written journalism, your profile picture, as we move from the physical space also into the digital space, your profile in social media becomes an important strategic tool for you, because it becomes the place where people can, I mean, obviously people can walk up to you in the physical world and you can meet with people and have a coffee and do an interview. But more and more, you will have to sort of establish yourselves in here, in the digital space, and establish yourself as a person in the digital space through your profiles in social media. And more people will have to access you through the digital space And in the digital space, it becomes suddenly something more important than just having a profile on Instagram, or having a profile on Snapchat, or having a profile on Facebook. It becomes a question of you as a person also being accessible in social media through your social media profiles. And you will find various uses in the digital space for your social media profiles. One use, obviously, is to share your journalism, to get more audience to your journalism. That's one use, sort of a no-brainer. Many journalists do that today. But another use is to establish relationships to viewers, or establish relationships to people who you might want to interview in the future, or develop as sources in your journalism. And much of this will go through your social media profiles, where you won't meet up in the physical space. I guess it's like that already today. I don't know whether you are as far advanced in your studies that you have already made contact to people that you want to interview through social media. But the instance that you write to someone, let's say on Facebook, a stranger that you would like to interview, what is the first thing that person will do? Well, the first thing that person will do is the person will look at your profile on social media and ask him or herself, who is this person trying to contact me? And they will look at your profile and they will evaluate you. And the first thing they will see is your profile picture. So this is why I'm talking about the profile picture and also your profile in social media as a really valuable tool for you, not just for distributing your own content, but more and more as a sort of a replica of yourself. So a place where people can relate to you as a person. And again, just to sum up, in a world dominated by technology, the journalists who are actually humans will become more and more interesting. And suddenly, this is kind of not the easiest thing to teach, because it's a new field and a new area. Because when I was trained as a journalist, and when your professor was trained as a journalist, we were taught that we as individuals were not important. And mostly our job was to produce journalism and then step into the background and be sort of neutral and not visible. I would argue, and I would warn you, that there are voices in journalism who would disagree with me here. I think that's important to say. It's actually part of a discussion and not something that is totally agreed upon. But I would argue that in a world as I've been describing, it actually becomes important for people who are potential readers of your journalism to actually feel you as a human being as well. And what do they have to see if they can feel you as a human being? Well, I think from time to time, relaxed updates in social media that are not necessarily about journalism, but what you are doing in your life. And you will each individually have to find out where to draw the line between being very private or just sharing personal, non-controversial stuff from your daily life. But doing that, even though you might think people who share too much about their personal lives in social media can be a bit too much and you are tired of it maybe, I think it is important for us, and it's an important mission for the future and for today's journalists, to explore this area, how to come across as humans by sharing some personal stuff parallel to sharing our professional products. That's actually, I think, an important mission. So that said, let's move on to some more info about the personal profile. Share my screen again. I've begun to advocate that when people think about the strategy about their personal profiles in social media, How do they want to look? What do they want to use their personal profiles for? What should they say? I've begun to advocate a thinking divided in 3 levels, and they look more or less like this. So in my view, there is a basic layer and another level that I call being transparent. And then the top level where you are really using your profile and your persona in social media to build your reputation as a journalist. This is where you are very active and where people will find it very useful to follow you in social media because you are maybe sharing information about a particular subject or covering news, or there are many opportunities in building reputation. But it's also a hard place to start off on. At least for myself, it took me a couple of years to actually start using social media in a sense where people would also find it interesting to follow me. The first year or two, this is 6 years ago, when I was in social media, I mostly just listened. So what I advocate is a thinking where first you move into a basic layer, and perhaps many of you are already there. What I mean by the basic layer is, and maybe you can work a bit on that before we meet up later in June, is a safe and managed presentation of self, and not necessarily any voice, not necessarily any updates for the public. If it's on Facebook, you only do updates in the basic layer for your friends, and you don't actually do public updates. If it's on Twitter, you have a profile on Twitter, you mostly listen, you don't actually tweet yourselves. But what I mean by safe and managed is that the profile picture is a good profile picture. There's adequate information about you. And if people look at your profile, let's say on Facebook, you have managed what they can see. Maybe you being students and youngsters, maybe you are also from time to time going to parties, and from time to time your friends will tag you in crazy pictures. And are they visible for the whole world, or have you made sure that it's only visible for your friends? This is what I mean by a safe and managed presentation of self. Just imagine that in June, when we do the mood court experiment, that some lawyer in Germany finds one of your tweets interesting, and he or she looks you up and checks you out on Facebook. So in that meeting with a stranger, is your profile safe and managed? Does it come across as you want it to come across in that instance? So the next layer, which I call the transparent layer, is an open profile. It's building on the basic layer, and it's also a layer where you are sharing and updating occasionally. This is perhaps something that some of you, or maybe even most of you, already do. And I don't mean sharing to your friends. I actually do mean sharing to the public. So posts that are visible for the whole world. In Instagram and Twitter, that's more or less regular use. I mean, you can make your Instagram profile private, and you can make your Twitter profile private, but it really doesn't make that much sense. If you are on those platforms, and if you are putting in content, then this is what I mean. It's an open profile, sharing and updating to the world. Are we talking Facebook? Well, then I mean posts on Facebook that are public and accessible for everyone to see. But there's no, in this level, there's no real sort of plan behind it. You're just moving along, slowly building your reputation as yourself in the digital layer in a safe and managed manner. And people who look up your profiles can get a taste of what you are currently working on. This is, I think, a very useful place for you to be as students. And the final layer, building reputation, I mean, the difference here is really, this is where you have a plan. This is where there is a reason for people to relate to you. There's a reason for people actually to start following you. This is where people, when they come across your profile in social media, they go, huh, that's interesting. Let me follow her. And because there is a stream of content with a plan behind it. You might be sharing media development articles, or you might be sharing stuff about drone flying or VR or cooking or marathon running. I mean, the subject here is really not that important. The thing is that you go in depth, that you really know something about it, or that you are at least very curious about something, curious enough to find maybe the best articles weekly out there on the internet, and you share them maybe with a personal comment. This is a profile that will make people curious and that will slowly gather followers. It's kind of difficult to build followers only maintaining a basic layer. And it's also, it will be limited, the amount of followers that you will build if you have a transparent profile where you just occasionally share stuff. This will mostly be people who you network with, people who you happen to work with or study with, or friends. They will be happy to connect with you in the transparent level. So this is, I hope, just stop sharing screen and not stop recording. Hang on a sec. Here we go. So hopefully you can use this thinking. I primarily advocate these levels because I know from experience from myself, but also from my students and from professional journalists that I train, that it can be sort of maybe not intimidating, but at least many people. I mean, what do I have to say to a bunch of strangers? That's kind of a challenge, and I find it useful to get going with social media, even though you don't actually are ready to start building voice and building reputation. So hopefully you can use this thinking. So unless there are questions, I will actually move on. Let me just have some coffee. Okay, I'll share my screen again. Move on to the next part here. Here we go. Another concept that I quite like is the concept of maintaining a digital home base. Sort of, just before I share my screen, the digital space, as you move into the digital space, you might think of it as having a Snapchat profile, having an Instagram profile, having a Twitter profile, having a Facebook profile. The sum of all that is having a representation of yourself in the digital space. And some of your profiles and some of your digital spaces are more important than others. And this is the next subject that I would like to cover. And I call it having a digital home base. This is maybe something for you to think about. Here goes. So this is our friend Tanya again. She is active on Twitter. And as I said, I don't actually know her. I just came across her profile. So what happens when I go over to Google and Google Tanya? Her name is in Danish Tanya Jørgensen. So I Google Tanya Jørgensen, and I get a sort of a result that is not really helpful for Tanya. I can see in her profile that she's a freelancer. And the first Tanya that I come across, Tanya is a sort of a fairly regular or common Danish name. Not that common, but there are, I guess, 30 or 40 or 50 other Tanya Jørgensens in Denmark. So the first result is a different Tanya. And the photos here are also photos from other people called Tanya Jørgensen. And then there's a link here to profiles on Facebook of people called Tanya Jørgensen. And then there's a third Tanya here. This arrow here is wrong. And then finally down here, we find her. And this is her website. So the result here is interesting because ideally, this is another guy called Esben Ørberg. When I Google him, the first result is his company page. The next result is his Facebook public profile. And the next result for Esben here is his LinkedIn profile. And then another digital space where he often blogs. So, and all the pictures here are of Esben Ørberg, a Danish journalist. So with him, we get a much better result. And I'm quite occupied with this thought of also managing our representation on Google. So what happens if you Google your own name? You've probably tried that. And if you haven't tried it, do try. One important thing is when you do it, don't Google yourself when you are logged into Google. Try and Google yourself in a browser that's set in private mode. Because if you Google yourself as you are logged into your Google account, you will get a sort of a distorted view because Google knows you. So the important thing is here is to try to get a view of how you come across when people Google you, when you are when you are a different person than yourself. I hope you get my meaning. What's at play here is that here I have Googled myself. What's at play here is that you can actually manage all your sort of your spaces in the digital space, and you can manage them also with an aim at optimizing your sort of Google search results. I have a personal website, and it took me a couple of months after I put it together before it was actually visible when people Google my name. So my wish was to have my website as the number one. And as soon as I started filling content into my website, I started blogging. And I also named my website after my own name in the code. Then after a couple of months' time, slowly but surely, the website became the number one hit when people Google me. Then there's my company profile, my Twitter profile, and down here is my Facebook profile. And the reason why I mention all this in a session about your personal profiles is that once you start building voice, once you start moving into the second layer of being transparent and also from time to time share content, you will see that when people Google your name, your personal profiles in social media will rather quickly move into page one of your Google results. And this is, I think, an important argument for also from time to time use social media in a professional manner and from time to time share stuff, is that you will be easier to find in the digital space for other people. And this is in your interest once you start looking for a job and stuff like that. So I have actually appointed my website as my digital home base. And what do I mean by that? Well, I'll try to illustrate it on this slide here. I have a number of profiles. Many of you probably also have all sorts of profiles in the digital space. I have my Google Plus account. I know that Google Plus today is more or less dead, but I do these webinars from my Google Plus account, so I maintain a Google Plus account. And you will also see that I actually use, at the moment, I use the same profile picture on more or less all my profiles. This is my YouTube channel, and this is my LinkedIn profile, and this is my Facebook page. This is deleted now because that was just an experiment. Here's my Twitter profile. Here's my Facebook personal profile. Here's my Instagram profile. I don't know what I'm using Instagram for. It's kind of random, but I do have an Instagram profile. And here's my bookmarking service, Delicious, also with a profile. And this is the service called About Me. And because my website in the middle here is my home base, this is a tip for you. On all my profiles, in the About section, or whenever there is an opportunity, you see on my Twitter profile, there is the option of linking to a site. I actually link to my digital home base from my Twitter profile. And I link to my home base from all my profiles and all my spaces in the digital space. and this gives it Google ranking, and it also sort of, for me, is quite handy, because when people visit my Twitter profile, they can of course see my tweets, but they can also see quite clearly that I do have a website, and maybe they'll visit my website as well, and this is what I want them to do. So you can maybe copy that thinking, that maybe during the next year or so, as you slowly develop your plan for your presence in the digital space, you can maybe point out 1 or 2 anchor points in the digital space that all your other profiles link to, because then you will start sending your audiences to your most important. This might be a Twitter profile, or a Facebook profile, or a LinkedIn profile, or you can actually choose for yourself. You don't have to have a website, as I have. For me, it's useful because I can do some blogging, and I can anchor some of my webinars and stuff like that, and people will maybe book me for speech. So for me, it's useful. But for you, it might be some years down the line that you will actually need a website. So you can just maybe say that your Twitter profile or your Facebook profile can be your digital homepage, and you can emulate this way of thinking. A couple of tips before we move on. It's important when you inspect what I call your online brand elements, and when you search for your own name, it's important, as I said before, to use a different browser as the one you normally use, or not to be logged in. And also try to widen your search. Maybe try and search for yourself on the Yahoo search engine and on the Bing search engine, because you will see different results. And if you don't see any results, then that's also fine, because that means that you're in a perfect position to start building your presence in the digital space, and you can actually control it. So if you do have questions about this, then fire them off now, or save them to when we meet in June. Another tip: when you upload your profile photo, make sure that it's minimum 600 pixels wide, because it's nice for people to be able to click on your profile picture and really see a nice big picture of who you are. If you don't have any pictures visible when people do Facebook searches, just like Tanya here, when I search for Tanya, there's not a single photo coming up on Google of Tanya. What you can do is you can upload, first of all, you can start uploading profile pictures to social media profiles and make them public. And another thing you can do, because Google will see that, another thing you can do is you can upload pictures to a free photo service, maybe like Flickr. There are a couple of other free photo services out there. Create a new account, a free account, upload a couple of nice pictures of yourself. Make sure to fill in title, description with your own name, and then slowly that will be visible for Google. And when people Google your name, these pictures will show up in the results. And slowly you will start building sort of a nice representation of yourself in Google. So, screen sharing. You still hanging on? Yeah. So we're moving into the last stretch here. Hang on a second. Let me just check my notes. See if there's something that I overlook. Hang on a sec.
Hey Christian, that was really interesting, and I can see that you build it up every time we talk about that profile thing. No, it's something what we all experience, that we really grow into it. It's nothing. I find it quite important to know. It's nothing you can do at one day or 1 year. It's really something we all have to grow into it, because we come from the analog sphere. You as well, and. My question is, why is your home base website on Danish? No? It's that you use not English language there, because in all the other profiles you are quite internationally.
Yes. Yes.
So what is the language factor?
Well, I think it's and obviously I'm not saying that we just all spoke a universal language.
Sorry.
Well, it's a bit of a mystery for me. one of the most important things for me in my job is my international relations. You amongst one of them, and you know how much we learn from connecting, you and I, and also the other people that we are networking with internationally. It's one of the most important things in my job to be able to network with people. So if all my profiles were just in Danish, I would never be able to network with people outside the borders of Denmark. And I think you share a similar situation with me in Germany. Should it be in English? Should it be in German? And my website is in English purely for the reason that at the end of the day, when I get booked for a speech or a training session, sometimes people need to study my website to be able to see who I am, what I have been doing, and read my blog, my old blog posts, and see some of my webinars before they decide to actually book me. So if that were to be in English, as things are today, this would be something that would stop people in Denmark, I think, from going all into who I am, and maybe think, oh, he is more interested in having an international perspective, and we should look for someone who is more Danish. So I don't know if this makes sense, but there is this problem that the market for the knowledge that I share is mostly in Denmark and in Danish, but my own personal interest lies in the international cooperation. So I don't have an elegant solution, and maybe during the summer when I have time, I'm actually considering doing an English version of my website, so to have both. LinkedIn has quite a nice solution, I think. I don't know, I guess some of you also have LinkedIn profiles. LinkedIn does a nice job, I think, because you can actually specify an English or German or Danish or Dutch language version of your profile without having to maintain different profiles. So each element in your LinkedIn profile you can fill in various languages, and LinkedIn then determines if someone watches my LinkedIn profile from Germany or from an English-speaking country. LinkedIn will show the English version language of my profile. So this is, I think, a really neat solution. But unfortunately, you can't do something similar with your actual voice, your stream. There you have to make a decision. So for me on Twitter and on Facebook, I mix things up. I tweet like 80% English and 20% Danish, and that's not a problem. I think you could even go 50% English and 50% German and still maintaining your international audience. So it really comes down to where do you think your audience lies, and where would you want to start building relations? That's, I think, my answer. Yeah. And also, as you mentioned, the material this time is different from last time, from last semester. Your fellow students also got a webinar on the personal profile, and it was, I think, quite different, not substantially, but quite different from this. And as your professor points out, this is an area where we all at the moment are experimenting. There are some things that are starting to become clear, as you can perhaps see, but I'm also actually constantly in experimentation mode. So that's also an important thing. You are innovating with us. Once you start doing this, you will be joining the circle of people in journalism who are actually innovating on this area, which I think is important. Okay. So we have, what do you say, Elizabeth, do we have 10 minutes left maybe? Something around that?
Yeah, we have even more, but feel free to finish whenever it's suitable for you.
Okay. I would like to just run through a couple of best practices on just Twitter and Facebook, and share my screen again. Let's just take Facebook first. Hope you can see my Facebook profile here. So if I go to my own Facebook profile, there's quite a handy tip that I would just like to share with you, is that if you press the privacy shortcut, this is the one with the padlock symbol. If you click that and you click who can see my stuff, and you click what do other people see on my timeline, view as, then you get to see your own profile as it looks to other people who are not friends with you. This is quite a useful place to start. And I do think, actually, even though you think maybe Facebook is a private space and you wouldn't want to build voice on Facebook, that's your own decision. But I think you should start off by checking out like that. How do you actually look on Facebook? And remember that on Facebook, your profile picture can actually only be public. You cannot hide it. So already there you are building reputation. When people Google your name and find you on Facebook, they will, whether or not you are friends with them, they will be able to see your profile picture. So start off maybe by looking at your profile. How does it look for people who are not your friends? So I'll just close it down again. And I'll just share with you, I think in Germany, in Facebook, I'm guessing here, but I've just checked out a couple of German profiles. Facebook a couple of months ago rolled out internationally a new section that is actually a bit like LinkedIn. It's called the intro section, and this is if you activate that, you'll probably, most of you, find that on your profiles it's ready for you to move into this intro section. So if you hover your mouse over the intro field here and you press edit, you will get a very Twitter bio-like field, but you only have 101 characters to describe yourself. And I'm still experimenting here. What I've written is, I'll translate for you, journalist, associate professor, public speaker, and something that roughly translates to father to a flock, and then my email address. I'll just cancel again here. And it can only be public. So you have the opportunity to just fill in a couple of words about who you are publicly. And also, if you have written something in the About section on Facebook, you will get the opportunity to, again here, hover your mouse over the edit button, and then Facebook will show you a dialog box like this, and you can tick off which of the elements from the About section in Facebook should be visible. As you can see here, I've ticked off a couple of them. Where I live, what my job title is, my former job title, my followers, who I'm married to, and then a couple of them, my home time. I haven't ticked that off just to save some space, but that's thoroughly up to you. And then that gets shown in this section. In the About section on Facebook, it varies how much people actually use that. I've actually filled in quite a lot. Also some info about my other profiles in social media, my phone number and stuff like that. I don't mind people finding it, but that's a private matter. Details about you, who I am and what I do, stuff like that. It's all stuff that I've filled out in the About section. And as you can see, you have the opportunity to draw from the About section, where it's only visible maybe for friends, to make it public here in the intersection. And I actually advocate that people use the intersection because it's quite nice. And you can also, you can handpick up to 5 images called featured images from Facebook. If you do it on your computer, like this, you can pick images from Facebook, upload it to Facebook only. So if you want to showcase a picture that's not on Facebook, you have to upload it to Facebook first. If you do this on your phone, you can do it on your phone, then you are able to also choose between pictures, photos from your phone's photo gallery. So all in all, you can make quite a nice public section. This is what I call the basic layer. So people can see who you are, which can be quite useful. And also, if you could consider using Facebook personally, if you consider employing Facebook personally for some public posts when we do the Mood Court project later in June, I would really urge you to fill out the intersection here, if you have it. Some people haven't got it yet, but most people have globally. This is completely new, these buttons here. This was only, I think, 2 weeks ago that Facebook also included then, because in the About section, I have filled out in details about me, my other services like Skype, Instagram, Twitter, stuff like that. They have now started to display that as a service to me, so that people who find me on Facebook can see easily here and quite nicely laid out that I also have a Twitter account and an Instagram account, and this is my Skype name, this is my website, stuff like that. So this is all quite new, and it's all something that you can control by going in and filling in the About section and then hitting the Edit button. So also, I would point out that as you go into the, for instance, your friends section, and I apologize if you already know this stuff, but if you move into friends, you should maybe consider, is that a public knowledge thing, who your friends are? Because you can control that. It's very easy just to hit edit privacy, and then in this dialog box, you will decide whether or not your friend list is visible for friends or for the public, or for maybe some custom lists that you can do. You can put together custom lists of friends, so you can fine-tune who is actually able to see this stuff on Facebook. I'm not sort of for or against the friend list being public or not. I think this is a very private matter, whether or not it should be public or not. For some journalists, it can be useful to hide who you are friends with in certain instances. So the last thing I would like to point out is when you go into the More section here and you hit Manage Sections, sorry, like that, you can actually also manage whether or not, or which of these sections people should, or the public should be able to see around your profile. I've hidden my likes like that. You can tick it on or tick it off, and once I've hidden it like that and save, there's not a full list of what I have liked on Facebook to be seen for the public. This is all stuff that I think should be checked out as what I call safe management of your public persona. So moving over to Twitter, just a few words about Twitter profiles, best practices. So Twitter is an individual thing. I'll just randomly pick out a Twitter profile. I'm sorry, this is a Danish person, but I think it's fine. So Rikke here, I don't know her personally, but she has quite a nice Twitter profile. I think a nice profile picture, and she links to her LinkedIn profile, which is obviously then important for her. And what I quite like here, she has a short Twitter handle. Be careful not to choose too long a Twitter handle, because when people mention you on Twitter, it's nice that you don't have too long a Twitter handle, because it's kind of a hassle to have to mention a Twitter handle that is too long and too complicated. So make sure that it's as short as possible. Also, Rikke Strårup has a Twitter handle that mimics her name, Rikke Strårup. I quite like that, because as we move on to the next stage of living in the digital space, I think there's a tendency to people are starting to using their real identities also in the digital space, either their real identities or a fixed identity that goes right across many social media profiles. And in the beginning, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when we started getting the web and stuff like that, we were seeing most people were sort of playing with their identities and choosing all sorts of strange and funny and joke names. And we tend to see people moving away from that and then more or less being who they are in the digital space. And it might be something for you to consider as well, whether or not going forward in your careers, your Twitter handle is sort of also okay in a professional setting. As I showed you last time, this service called Follower Wonk also lets people choose. Let me just see if I can find a Twitter profile. There's one here, one called Liz. She has a Twitter profile where she also indicates 4 hashtags where she is often active. This I think is quite nice also. If you happen to know, I do it myself as well as on my own profile. I'm just indicating that I'm quite interested in journalism and social media. And that's also something for you to consider, that your profile text on Twitter, you will get 160 characters, is also something to optimize for Google search. Because if people use a service like Follower Wonk and they are looking for journalists who are an expert in Germany on Panama Papers, then Panama Papers should be one of the words in your profile. I hope you get my meaning here, that you can also view your profile text on Twitter as a tool for Google to see what you are about. If you don't feel that there's any particular subject that you would like to be seen, no problem at all. I think as a minimum, your Twitter bio text should inform people about who you are and what you do, and then it's more or less up to you what else should be there. But I kind of advocate that it's transparent about job titles or positions, or you studying journalism, or you studying communication or PR or whatever. I kind of advocate that kind of transparency so people can actually, so they get a chance to evaluate who is this person that I'm maybe relating to. Other than that, a very important factor about your Twitter profile is your actual Twitter stream. So when people check you out on Twitter, I'm just looking at my own profile here. So if, let's say, I like something on Twitter, or I retweet something on Twitter for a person that I don't know, that person, I think there's a 50-50 chance that that person will check my profile out, read my bio, who is this person who just retweeted me, look at my profile picture, and the last thing and very important thing people will do is they will just quickly go through my stream, because if people decide to follow me or decide to follow you, then it will also partly be on the basis of what are you saying in your public stream. This goes for all your social media networks. So also try to sort of also manage your stream, and maybe sometimes consider an update, whether or not it reflects as you want it to reflect on your personality. I'm not saying that it should be all sort of boring or very professional stuff. It should actually also be interesting and personal. But there might be some updates from very friendly settings that you might consider maybe for a more closed social media like Snapchat or other kinds of profiles. And we also see that as quite an interesting trend, that people tend to move away from sharing very, very personal stuff, or maybe 10 tweets from a party and stuff like that, because it reflects on you, on your overall history of what you have been saying on your, in your sort of personal profiles in the digital space. All right, I think actually that was what I had today. I know, and I haven't forgotten that last time I said that I will also give you some more stuff around using Hootsuite and using TweetDeck, but we've realistically run out of time, and I think I would prefer to do one of the first things that we should do when we meet up later in June is to do a session on those tools. It would be, I think, also better to do it in an environment where we can talk together and where I can take your questions. So this was more or less what I had for you today.
Okay, thank you very much. The little audio we can produce. Thank you so much, Christian. It was really a pleasure. And as you said, we see each other in June, very soon, in 3 weeks. And I think we catch up on Skype one of these days. And
Let's do.
It just left to wish you a wonderful day.
Same to you all. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.